recording. Okay, we're live now. Well, we have Dustin Hite here. Legislature just gavelled in 15 minutes ago. Tell me a little bit about, we have a lot of kind of maybe some big issues coming up this year. Sales tax, that's something that folks are starting to buzz about a little bit.
Sure.
So your thoughts for this year on that? Yeah, what's your thoughts?
So on the I will discussion, I think what we'll see is a discussion about, number one, changing the formula and where the money's going to go if we decide to raise the sales tax. But number two, I think there'll be a discussion about raising the sales tax a full penny and then where that money is going to go. I've heard a lot about using that for mental health funding and maybe relieving some of the burden on Iowa property taxpayers. But I know before it ever gains any of my support, it will have to be a net neutral or even a tax decrease for Iowans. I won't vote to increase Iowans' taxes.
All right, so that would be to net for the neutral part of the taxes would be that you're looking for income tax then or some other sort of tax to be lessened.
Right, overall, I don't want to see Iowans' tax burdens go up.
Okay, and you mentioned the mental health funding. The mental health in Iowa has a lot of attention. People are concerned that those that have mental health issues are not getting the attention that they need. This potential sales tax could be a solution for that, or what are your thoughts about helping those with mental health issues?
Well, I think the solution needs to be many parts. Number one is the funding. It's expensive. There's a lot of professionals that deserve to be paid for the work that they do, but also it's getting folks out there who want to be those professionals, psychiatrists, therapists, all those sorts of things. And so our approach to it needs to be beyond just the funding, but also looking at ways to get people to do the work.
And some of this comes into law enforcement funding for that, because law enforcement has, unfortunately, I think, become that stopgap measure for mental health.
Right, they've been on the front lines and that sort of thing. I sit on the Justice Systems Budget Subcommittee, and we set the budget for the Department of Public Safety, which includes the Highway Patrol. And so, I'd certainly be in favor of looking at giving some increases there. But as you know, the budget's a huge animal in this state, and it all has to be fit together. One of the other big priorities of Republicans and of me is education. We spend 56% of our budget on education in this state, and we think it's important. And so one of the first things, hopefully, that people back home see is the SSA and getting that set for the year.
And this is your sophomore year, so kind of what kind of roles have you landed in this year? And how are you fitting in?
So the nice thing about being my second year up here is I didn't have to find out where to hang my coat today. But beyond that, my committee assignments have stayed the same. But last year, as you know, I was the floor manager for what I would call two big House bills, the property tax transparency bill and the campus free speech. And I think I've found a good niche there where I can address those bills, work on them and craft them before they make it to the floor, and hopefully continue in that role to be the floor manager for bills, and like I said, continue to work on those before they make it to the floor.
And at the end of the year, there'll be an election, and we know that sometimes in the Iowa House, things are really busy right after an election, and then as we're coming up towards an election, nobody wants to rock the boat. Do you see that as a potential problem in the Iowa House and the legislature as a whole this year? Well,
I think what we want to do is pass good policies for Iowans. Some people may sometimes see those things as rocking the boat. Some may not. I can tell you one of my biggest priorities is to address the lack of broadband internet, the high-speed internet in parts of the state. I don't think that's a rocking the boat type of issue, but that has no reason to why I did it. As you know, following my campaign when I first got here, that's been one of my priorities, and I think we'll come up with some pretty good legislation this year to address that.
Well, and as the former mayor of New Sharon, you saw the impact that good internet has for your community.
Oh, it's huge. You heard the speaker talk about it today, about how, if especially rural Iowa, if we want to stay apart, if we want to stay relevant, it's crucial. for business, for families, for education, for all of that.
And of course, the 900 or 800 pound gorilla always with every legislative session, the main reason you're here is to sort that budget out. So really, I mean, folks are concerned about school funding, their roads and bridges. Those are things that we see, and unfortunately with roads and bridges impact us every day.
Sure.
So
we as a Republican majority have a philosophy to be conservative in our budget. We love to fund everything, but we simply can't. We have to live within our means, much like Iowans do, and we want Iowans to keep more of their hard-earned money, not give it to the state to decide what to do with it. And so, as we look for budgeting, we look at using those conservative budgeting principles, not spending all the money that we can, so that hopefully we can cut taxes.
Well, I was going to say that the numbers came in, I think, in December from the estimating committee, and it looked pretty good for Iowa.
Well, and I think you can attribute that to we've had a Republican-controlled House and Senate and governorship for the last 3 years, and Iowa's doing really well.
So that those numbers have looked good. Education, I mean, that we always end up in a dogfight up here, with educators and the need for that. Do you foresee Iowa education getting what sort of increase maybe, or if any at all this year?
Well, and right today, that's probably a discussion above my head. I know those conversations are back and forth in the Senate and the House and the governor's office to get a number that everybody can agree on. I certainly would hope that we could give education a boost. I think we will. Certainly, that corresponds to our increase in budget. But one of the other things, you talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, probably the 900-pound gorilla in the room is Medicaid and the increased costs of it to the state. And we have to be wise and know that that's coming up, and that's just not a number that we can ignore.
And has there been talk, because the payment was withheld to one of Iowa's participants in that? And so, I mean, what is the legislature hoping to do? Have you heard anything, a solution? I mean, because of course it's an expensive thing for Iowa.
So, right now as we sit here today, I've not been a part of that discussion. I'm sure it's going on right now with people who sit on those committees and that sort of thing. I don't, so I couldn't give you any inside baseball on that one, Ken.
All right, well, we try. One of the last big ones for Iowans, and a lot of Iowans have become fond of the usage of CBD and, in some regards, medical marijuana. They're kind of looking to the legislature after a high-profile arrest to help set some tone for that for the future. What are your personal feelings on that, and what would you like to see the legislature do?
So I would like to see us come back to the CBD discussion and come up with a bill that all the Senate, the House, and the governor can agree on, so that we can provide that needed relief for Iowans. I think we're going to still see a push for legalizing marijuana, and as I've always been consistent in that is, I'm just not for recreational marijuana. I think it does damage to Iowans. I think it does damage to our families. I just don't see any benefit to the state of Iowa for that.
Okay, but CBD or medical usage for
things
might be something that you're open for a discussion.
Absolutely, and I voted for the bill last year because, like I said, I think it provides some much needed relief for Iowans. The governor vetoed that bill, wanted us to go back to the drawing board. I'm confident that that's going to happen again this year, and you'll see a package that I think everybody can agree on.
We've been through a small list of questions here. Is there something that you'd like to inform the constituents about? I know eggs and issues will be coming up here for you guys in the near future too, but other items beyond that.
Well, the one thing I always encourage people to do, Ken, and I never did this before I got up here, is come up here during the session. We've got 100 days that we're up here. We'll be up here till somewhere at the end of April, hopefully less than that. But come up here, look me up, shoot me an email before you come up so I know you're coming up. But I think it's important for Iowans to see their government at work. So I always encourage everybody to do that.
All right. Well, that's all I have for you.
Thanks, Ken.